When my husband Ethan looked up from his laptop one Tuesday evening and casually said, "Mark's going to stay with us for a little while," I thought he meant a weekend. A little while sounded like 3 days, maybe 5. I smiled and asked, "How long?" He shrugged. "A few weeks. He just needs to get back on his feet." Mark was Ethan's best friend since college. I'd met him dozens of times. He was funny, charming, and always had another story about why life had treated him unfairly. Lost another job, another breakup, another landlord who didn't understand. I felt sorry for him, so I said yes. I didn't realize I wasn't really being asked. 2 days later, Mark arrived with 3 large suitcases, a gaming console, golf clubs, and enough boxes to fill our guest room completely. He hugged Ethan. He nodded at me. Then he said, "Thanks for letting me crash here." Crash. That word suddenly felt heavier than I expected. The first week wasn't bad. He cleaned up after himself. He thanked me for dinner. He even offered to buy groceries, though he never actually did. I kept reminding myself this was temporary. By week 3, nothing felt temporary anymore. His shoes stayed by the front door. His laundry somehow appeared in my washing machine. His coffee mugs remained on the living room table until I picked them up. He worked from home, or at least claimed he was looking for work, but every afternoon I could hear video games through the guest room wall. Meanwhile, I worked full-time from home. Every client meeting came with background noise. Every lunch break included another unexpected conversation. Every quiet moment disappeared. One Friday, I opened the refrigerator after a long meeting. The leftovers I'd planned for lunch were gone. Mark walked into the kitchen, smiling. "Oh, was that yours?" I nodded. I figured nobody wanted it. I stood there for a second. It had my name on it. He laughed. I didn't even notice. He walked away. No apology. That night I mentioned it to Ethan. "It was just food," he said. "I know, so let it go." I did. Not because it wasn't important. Because I was beginning to notice a pattern. Every small thing became my responsibility to overlook. Every uncomfortable moment became my problem for noticing. Weeks turned into 2 months. Our electricity bill increased. The grocery bill nearly doubled. The bathroom I used every morning was always occupied. Our house no longer felt like home. It felt like I was renting space inside someone else's routine. One Saturday, I came downstairs wearing pajamas. Mark was sitting in the kitchen with 2 of his friends. Coffee cups, breakfast plates, loud laughter. I froze. Nobody had told me guests were coming. Mark smiled. Morning, I quietly walked back upstairs. Later I asked Ethan why strangers had been invited into our house. He looked confused. "It's just a couple guys. In our home." So? I would have liked to know. He sighed dramatically. "You've become really sensitive lately." Sensitive. It was the word people used when they didn't want to admit they had crossed a line. That evening I wrote something in my journal. A boundary ignored doesn't disappear. It simply gets crossed again. The next Monday I suggested we set a move-out date, not because I disliked Mark, because our marriage deserved privacy again. Ethan didn't even look up from his phone. He's under enough pressure. So am I. He has nowhere else. He has family. They're difficult. I stared at him. And what am I? He finally looked up. "Don't make me choose." The sentence sat between us. I wasn't asking him to choose. I was asking him to protect the home we'd built together. Instead, he made me feel like the obstacle. Over the next 2 weeks, I stopped doing the extra things. I cooked enough dinner for Ethan and me. If Mark wanted food, he could make it himself. I washed only our laundry. I cleaned only our bedroom and bathroom. I wasn't being rude. I was simply refusing to become the unpaid manager of an arrangement I never agreed to. Mark noticed. "So, we're making separate dinners now?" I smiled politely. "I thought you'd probably want your own schedule." He looked surprised, then slightly annoyed. That night, Ethan confronted me. You embarrassed him. I fed my husband. You could have made enough for everyone. I could have. Silence filled the room. Then I quietly asked the question I'd been carrying for weeks. When exactly is Mark leaving? Ethan rubbed his forehead. I don't know. No estimate? No conversation? I don't want to pressure him. I nodded slowly. For the first time, I realized something painful. Mark wasn't the real problem. The real problem was that my husband had stopped seeing our marriage as something worth protecting. 3 days later, I came home from work. The guest room door was open. Inside, Mark wasn't packing. He was assembling a brand new desk. A large computer monitor sat on top. There were shelves against the wall. An office chair. A printer. He smiled proudly. What do you think? I looked around the room. It no longer looked like a guest room. It looked permanent. Then Ethan walked in behind me and said the one sentence I never expected to hear. I figured we should make him comfortable, because he's probably going to be here a lot longer. I didn't answer immediately, not because I didn't know what to say, because I finally understood that no sentence could fix what had been happening for months. I looked around the room one last time. The guest room had quietly become Mark's room. No discussion, no agreement, no respect. That night, after everyone went to bed, I sat alone at the kitchen table. I wasn't angry anymore. I was clear. There is a difference. The next morning, I called my manager and asked if I could work from the office 3 days a week. She smiled. We've missed having you here. Then I opened a separate savings account in my name. Not because I planned to leave, because I wanted choices. That evening, I asked Ethan if we could have dinner alone. Mark was in the living room. I waited until we were in our bedroom. I need you to listen without interrupting. He nodded. I've spent months adjusting. I know. No, you don't. I calmly explained everything. The missing privacy, the financial strain, the constant feeling that I was the guest in my own home. I never asked you to stop helping your friend, I said. I asked you to remember that I'm your wife. He stayed quiet. So what are you saying? I'm saying our marriage cannot survive if every boundary I have becomes an inconvenience. He rubbed his face. I thought you were overreacting. I know. And now? Now I'm done pretending I'm comfortable. For 2 days, nothing changed. Then Saturday morning arrived. Mark invited more friends over, again, without asking. This time I didn't go upstairs. I walked into the kitchen, smiled politely, and said, Gentlemen, I'm sorry, but today isn't a good day for visitors. The room became silent. Mark laughed awkwardly. We're already here, I know, but this is my home too. Nobody argued. Within 10 minutes, they were gone. Mark was furious. You embarrass me. I answered quietly. You invited people into someone else's home without asking. Ethan watched the entire exchange. For once, he didn't defend anyone. Later that evening, he knocked on the guest room door. I couldn't hear every word. Only enough. Time to make other arrangements. 2 weeks. I should have handled this sooner. Mark left the room angry. He didn't speak to me. He didn't need to. 2 weeks later, he moved into an apartment with another friend. The house felt strangely quiet. I hadn't realized how much noise I'd been carrying until it disappeared. A few days later, Ethan apologized, not with flowers, not with expensive gifts, just honesty. I kept trying to be a good friend, he said, and forgot how to be a good husband. I appreciated the apology, but I also knew apologies only matter when they're followed by change. Over the next few months, we started making decisions together again. No guests without both of us agreeing, shared financial planning, weekly dinners with no phones, simple habits, strong boundaries. One evening, Ethan asked something that surprised me. Why didn't you yell? I smiled. Because yelling would have made you defend yourself. He looked at me, but calm made me hear you. That sentence stayed with me. People often believe strength is loud. Sometimes it's simply refusing to abandon your own peace. Looking back, I don't blame Mark for accepting what was offered. I blame myself only for staying silent longer than I should have. Boundaries aren't punishments. They're invitations to respect. And the people who truly love you eventually understand that. Our marriage didn't improve because I won an argument. It improved because I finally believed that my comfort, my voice, and my home mattered just as much as anyone else's. That quiet belief changed everything. If this story touched you, please comment and subscribe. I have one question for you. Have you ever had to set a boundary with someone your partner cared about? Let me know your answer below.